to spend a little bit of time today is talking to you about the program that Charles mentioned, which is the Community Brigade program, and how it was created, where it came from, the challenges we faced, and where we are today. And then I'd be delighted to answer questions about potentially how this applies to Santa Barbara, where it's going within the state of California and multiple other states, and why it is so unique. But it is a collaborative story, and it starts with fire. I was recently at a meeting with Dr. Stephen Pine, who is well known. We were at the National Academy of Sciences meeting. And one of the things the doctor talked about, in addition to the huge cost of fires in the United States, is that frankly, we're now living in a fire age. It's no longer, just a few months of the year or only when wind blows. It is really all 12 months of the year. And the other piece is that fire's been around a long time. It is the long game. So as Tom Hanks says there, he's created fire, and basically disaster exposures have increased. There's a lot of misperceptions about exposures. Misperceptions that we ran into were things like, there's going to be a fire truck at everybody's house, or with mutual aid we can handle anything that happens. And we realized that we need to rebuild and build trust and relationships between the fire departments, businesses, community agencies, governments, so that we start to tap into the resource base of the private sector, which is about 80% of the resources in the private sector, and a lot of capabilities within local communities themselves that hadn't been tapped into. Our program really sort of was initiated by the Woolsey fire back in November 8th, 2018. A very aggressive fire, burned 97,000 acres, 1,600 structures. In Malibu, where I am, we lost about 488 homes. The interesting thing as far as achievements from the fire department, this is one of the largest evacuations in Southern California history, with 250,000 people evacuated. But losses were huge at over $6 billion. What's happened subsequent to that is interesting, because when I talk about the homes that were lost in Malibu, because of the challenges nowadays in financial challenges, permitting challenges, etc., barely half of those homes have been rebuilt after 5.5 years. When we had a fire a few years ago, we were able to rebuild homes in 2 to 3 years. Now that time's taking 6 years. So we're seeing twice the amount of time to try to rebuild, and the number of financial constraints and insurance issues have dramatically expanded over time. With the Woolsey fire, we were very, very involved in looking at what was going on and what happened. And immediately after the fire, the team that I have, we went over and tried to help the city of Malibu, working in their emergency ops center. We were sort of surprised they weren't really doing much to contact the businesses in the community, and some of the coordination challenges that existed. And then there was a meeting immediately after the fire on the 13th. Remember, the fire was on the just before this. At this meeting, which took place in Santa Monica High School, there were over 3,000 individuals that showed up. This auditorium not only was packed, they had to have an external movie theaters and so forth because of the number of people in the press that showed up. Interesting lesson learned. When you have so many folks who are so impacted by a fire, and they have gone through just a terrible loss, a financial, psychological, everything you can imagine, when you're going to meet with those folks, and this is an experience based on our background of responding to disasters worldwide, you need to talk and understand how they're feeling. And unfortunately, in this particular meeting, government agencies and so forth came up and talked about how great a job they did. Absolutely the wrong thing to do in a situation like this. This just pretty much infuriated the crowd and increased the gap and loss of confidence and trust between the local community and government agencies. Actually, even following this meeting, when we met with some of the fire officials, the feeling was it would take another entire generational change before they could build back the trust that was lost after the Woolsey fire. Well, that kind of time frame, frankly, is not acceptable. And from my background and some of our other academic institutions, we didn't want to wait that long, and we knew we could do some things that would be different. So with the help of Pepperdine University, USC, UCLA, Cal State Long Beach specifically, Dr. Steve and Shirley Jensen, we contacted Lori Peak, who is the head of the Natural Hazards Center at University of Colorado in Boulder and the National Science Foundation, and we obtained a very small quick response grant to write up an analysis of the fire. And we decided to go far beyond that, to really go in depth looking at what happened. We conducted well over 100 interviews. Each interview lasted at least 2 hours plus with victims of the fire, people who lost their homes or tried to stay, at all the issues that they faced, the emotional, the psychological, the financial issues. We went through all of that. We attended every single local community meeting there was for actually a few months afterwards. We were at all the city and agency meetings, and we listened and listened and listened. In some cases, we were rather surprised. At one of the meetings, the agency that was responsible for doing the government's or the fire and supervisors after action report solicited input from the community members that were impacted by the fire, and they actually came up with 72 different improvements that they would like to see. Unfortunately, not even one of them made it into that after action report. So we wanted to have an honest report, and we did. So we created this 2018 Woolsey Fire Catalyst for Change report. By the way, you can go to our website and download that at laepf.org. You can find the full report. Thousands of downloads of the report have been made. But what's unique about the report is it isn't just here's what happened in the fire. More than half the report focuses on how do you take a community, be it Santa Barbara, be it Malibu, Santa Monica, any place, and how do you build a roadmap to resiliency to look at short, medium, and long-term goals. Now, I know this screen is like an eye chart, so I'm not expecting you to read everything, but this is a sort of a summary of that roadmap. And what we first did was we looked at our overall goals. What do we really want to accomplish to create a highly resilient community? And who is involved? What key factors are there? And let's list every single stakeholder, from homeowners to the state of California, through the Santa Monica Mountain Conservatory, trusts, all these different groups that have some interest in building a more resilient community. And then the outcomes. We were very realistic in looking at what kind of short-term, medium, and long-term outcomes, the long-term being clearly to be more resilient, and addressing issues like insurance and constraints and so forth. But one of the things that you'll find in this chart is it looks at engaging the local community and building teams within that community that are responsible for helping the community mitigate the risk, understand the risk from an all hazard standpoint, and be involved more directly with the LA County Fire Department, with the local government agencies, in filling certain gaps that clearly existed in response and recovery from these disasters. So it's a great model. I encourage you to take a look at that and look at it from a perspective of Santa Barbara, how that would apply to you. Challenges that we faced after this. Well, we know disasters are inevitable. They're going to continue to happen. And unfortunately, expectations of the public tend to be unrealistic, as I mentioned about having a fire truck as far as every home is there. We know that resiliency has gone down. The risk has increased even more now with insurance companies leaving the state of California, non-renewing, and the huge growth. The last 2 years, we've had a lot of rain. We've seen significant growth. LA County Fire says the odds of a major fire, at least here in Southern California, have increased by 1,500% this year. And we've already seen a number of fires, including the ones by you and many others throughout California. And we're still pretty early in what used to be called the fire season. Recovery time has increased. Rebuilding costs are through the roof. Insurance companies aren't covering what they did. planning regulations slow down the ability to get back in. If you're a family living on a fixed income or retired, you probably won't qualify in most cases for a loan to get your house repaired. The result is we've seen, as I mentioned, just over half of the homes have been rebuilt. Now, one of the things we focus on is life safety. In the picture in the middle, you see the gentleman standing on the roof there with this fire hose. A few of you may recognize that gentleman. He's on a wood shingle roof. He's got a hose that's not doing too great. He isn't necessarily wearing the proper personal protection equipment in this case. Anyway, that's Richard Nixon that's standing on his roof. That's during the Bel Air fire. And I'm sure he thought that was the right thing to do, but that is not what we would consider to be a life safety type of thing to do. So as we were developing these brigades and looking at it, we wanted to make sure our top priority is whatever we did was focused on life safety and getting people out of the danger area, and that our folks going in were well protected. We needed a plan that included a lot of very well-defined leadership, coordination, dedication of personnel, dedication of resources, very specific rules and regulations. We do not advocate or allow anyone to cowboy this stuff. They do not deploy without very specific instructions from LA County Fire. We know where everyone is and what everyone is doing, and there's a number of legal regulations that we come under. Communications have to be very clear and the very distinct protocols. You don't want to do what the gentleman in the bottom picture is they're searching for hazardous material. The manager there, clearly in inappropriate gear, is watching over his employees, not the right thing to do. So let me show you something really short that will get the point across about life safety in disasters.
Brent, can you narrate? Because we can't hear the audio.
Okay, so we don't want any Georges in our particular group. And it's just to highlight the point that sometimes people think they're doing the right thing and they may not be. They may be putting others in danger, so we want to avoid that. In getting to this program, it took a long time, over 5 years of work to get it approved. It started, as I mentioned, during the Woolsey fire in 2018, but we made, I don't know, maybe hundreds of presentations. We met with the firefighters union. We met with the existing fire chiefs and all their senior staff. We met with city council members. We met with board members for the board of supervisors and so forth. Eventually, there were some changes in some of the personnel. One of the big positives for us was when we got assigned to work with Assistant Chief Drew Smith, one of the finest wildland fire experts in the United States, and Chief Maroney. When Chief Maroney took over LA County Fire, that was also a major change in a look at saying, we no longer can do this by ourselves. We need to find a way to engage local communities and get that resource up to speed so they can help themselves as well. So eventually in last year in October, our entire policy, everything we did, came in front of the LA County Board of Supervisors and Chief Maroney and all of his senior captains and chiefs. And we had a unanimous vote by the Board of Supervisors to approve this program officially. All the legal papers were done, and we became an official group as part of LA County Fire and the supervisors as of October. Since then, we've been going through our implementation process, whereby we're recruiting individuals, training, and we will be fully equipping individuals as well. We have about 200 people that we've gone through some initial screening of, and now we're going through more detailed interviews, and I can talk about that in a couple minutes. So what is the program in a nutshell? Well, there are 7 pilot communities that we have. I'll give you those in a minute. They are all in high-risk wild and urban face areas. So every place that was picked by the chief, myself, and others had certain unique characteristics, in some cases, one way in, one way out. But the thing that was common is every one of them was in a high-risk area. We needed to pull together volunteers. The volunteers, we wanted folks that were 2 types of volunteers. One of them for field operations. And field operations is something that's pretty strenuous. If you're wearing PPE in a wildland fire situation, it's like putting all your clothes on, getting on your Peloton and putting it inside a sauna and then starting to pedal away. It is not for the people that's just casually going to do it. It takes a certain amount of stamina and strength. But we also needed individuals who could help with logistics, communications, all kinds of support capabilities behind the scenes that we needed. We wanted people to sign up for at least 3 years. We do have equipment that is very specific and specified by LA County Fire, fire shelters, everything else. They will go through a full background check, and after they've completed all training and everything is signed off on, and they've signed all the waivers, then they will be credentialed. They will be carrying LA County Fire and Sheriff credentials, and they will be closely managed and monitored. It is a full collaborative effort between the government agencies and the communities. Something like this has not occurred before. This is a true pilot of this nature. It is different than some volunteer fire departments. It isn't a rotating basis. We are not, front and wildland firefighters. We do not go in and address the front of the fire. We don't put out burning buildings. We don't wear oxygen tanks. We don't do any of that. Where we might get involved is in putting out mop-up operations, that's spot fires, amber fires, turning things off, a lot of reporting on situational awareness, a lot of evacuation efforts and support. Everything is coordinated, documented, totally transparent, highly measured, and set up to be repeatable to other communities. So a toolkit, per se, to use within Santa Barbara, to use in Northern California, or other states as well. And that's what's been desired. These are the 7 initial communities. Topanga, which is a very, very heavy fuel load area, hasn't burned in decades to the extent of the canyon, the steep parts of the canyon themselves. Hidden Hills, Big Rock, Corral Canyon, Point Doom, Malibu West, and Ventura County line. So those are each of the pilot communities as they exist today. And as I mentioned, we have close to 200 initial volunteers that we're sorting through right now to get those teams potentially in place or at least identified. By the way, that map with the watch duty, I'm assuming a lot of you have that. It's a really smart app to have on your phone. It's one of the best ones out there to keep track of what's happening in fires. We use it all the time, and it's very accurate and gives you a lot of information as to what's going on. One of the other things that we got involved in is with the support of CAL FIRE, we also conduct home inspections. And we have a wildfire mitigation certified specialist on our team, Tyler Hupman, who is fully certified. There's only about 100 of those fully certified folks in the country. And we follow all the IBHS, Institute for Building and Home Safety, and the National Fire Protection Association guidelines. We have so far inspected about 400 homes and communities. We go in, we only look at the outside, but we film everything, video in certain cases, as well as still shots. And we take the homeowner through where those exposures are. We talk that in detail with the homeowner. We do it from a standpoint as a trusted third party that's neutral. We're not reporting you with violations or anything like that. We're here to just help the homeowner really understand their risks. If you're in a high risk area, you may be living in a fireplace, and sooner or later someone's going to throw a match in that fireplace, and we want you to understand what those are. We explain the new regulations, 0 to 5 feet, going out 30 feet and beyond. And, what kinds of things can you do to reduce that risk on your home that are inexpensive, and other things that may take a little while longer. This has been extremely well received because we understand how the homeowner looks at it. We understand the financial issues, and that it isn't a moonscape that's needed in all cases. Our operations per se that we're doing, recruitment, we meet with each of the 7 communities that we have done. There's a lot of documentation on what we're doing. And as I mentioned, we have quite a few folks. We were in a meeting last night with the Hidden Hills going through things with them. The training will take place primarily at LA County Fire sites, Fire Camp 8 and other locations where we will be conducting training. A number of the classes are, in person, like the wildland fire training, all those classes. Some of it, like some of the ICS training, can be online, or we'll do at different locations. We may use Pepperdine University or other sites to do that. From a communication standpoint, we will equip everyone with high-end VHF radios. We do operate on the same frequencies as the fire department. We have our own tactical channels within each local community, but we will be on the command channel. But we're very careful as to who can actually talk on that channel and not, because the last thing we want to do is interrupt the command operations, or somebody holds the key down on it and stops something that's vital from going on. But the reason the fire department wants us on there, they do trust our field operations head and each of the heads of the different brigades to carefully use that as a way to understand and hear what is happening, where is the fire, what's approaching, and to dispatch us properly and hear from us as to what's going on. Again, we'll all be credentialed, proper protection equipment. And again, we do not self-deploy. We only deploy under the command of the fire department. We will stage in safe refuge areas, red flag days. We want to identify where everyone is. We will then help out as far as some immediate things to support evacuations of communities or last minute mitigation. And then we may stage as well in a temporary refuge area, maybe a home that's not likely to burn within that community. Fire comes through. Again, we're not fighting the front of the fire. And then we will deploy immediately afterwards under the direction of the fire department. By the way, in doing all the training and so forth and the interviews, those are all done jointly with LA County Fire captains and our team. So everything is done as a partnership with the fire department. The key to success for the whole thing has been really community engagement. And that's the keystone or cornerstone of this. So we look at everything: vegetation management, mitigation, land use, working with communities. But if we bring these folks together and they start to share the level of responsibility, we believe that we can dramatically reduce the risk. Why do we believe that? In a study that we were part of years ago, we looked at the hard dollar benefits of investing in pre-disaster mitigation. We also looked at the investment in fire mitigation. And what was determined is that for every dollar spent, this was originally a federal study, dollar spent, there was equivalent for up to $10 benefit. So a 10-to-1 benefit cost ratio. But when you dig underneath it and you look at social change or changing non-structural behavior, a behavioral change has a benefit cost ratio of as high as 60-to-1. It's like wearing a seatbelt. The seatbelt's the thing, but getting people to wear it is a psychological social change. And that's how you engage that particular benefit. if we can get people to believe and understand that they have an equal responsibility living in a high fire danger area to mitigate the risk on their homes, to have a solid evacuation plan, and know that there's actually a team that lives in their community that is highly trained and is going to be there to sort of watch over the community. We're not going to guarantee your house isn't going to burn down by any means, but at least you know there is someone there that is going to be able to help out and support and look after your particular interests. So this really comes down to, again, bringing everyone together. We faced an erosion of trust and some limited connectivity between the government areas and the stakeholders. And now we've really moved towards this healing these relationships to increase the density of the networks and the way that we work together. So suddenly it's a shared environment instead of just, our operation, the fire department's operation, the sheriff's. It's no longer separate. We are all tied together, which is really what this whole program and this pilot is all about. I mentioned one of the key players is Drew Smith. Drew has been vital to us because of his incredible knowledge of advanced wildfire behavior. He's one of the best that there is. He's the fire whisperer, per se. And he is our primary contact for this program, along with some other interface folks between the brigades and the fire command center. We actually will have people staged at the incident command center itself, working side by side with the liaison officers, so that we're providing input directly to the command center, and they're updating us on the status of the event itself. So, because if we can't see what's going on, we're going to want to have the latest information. We will have privy to a lot of the same information all the firefighters and the captains have as well. So there's a lot of sharing that's going to go on in this, a lot of exercising, and again, the guidance from some really top, highly experienced individuals makes the difference. And there is a solid partnership now between Orange County, Los Angeles County, and Ventura County in mutual aid agreements. No longer is a lot of paperwork filled out. That mutual aid is immediate. And also the three counties have developed their rapid response force. And you've probably seen some of that up there too. The Chinook helicopters under Colson, they've added some more of those. They're incredible resource, very rapidly deployed. But it does tend to give us a false sense of security, because the fire departments have done such a great job of hitting some of the small fires so fast and making them non-events that the public tends to think that's always the case. And one of the things that Drew has educated us about is during Santa Ana wind conditions, when you have steady 40-mile-an-hour and 70-mile-an-hour gusts, the fire, if it hits 5 acres, Mother Nature's going to win. And it doesn't matter what we have. We can't stop it. And that's a historical reality. So that's where a lot of the mitigations of the homeowners and the communities comes into play, because it's no longer the fire department that's going to be able to stop this thing. It's really going to be, hopefully you've done enough mitigation on your home or the community that it reduces the chance, no guarantee, of your property burning down. This took a long time to get LA County Fire Department to support the full program. It was not easy, but they really saw the benefits of working with our communities as one of building trust, of increasing level of efficiency, and to be really a program that has a long-term future. They see this and they want to see this succeed. This is one of the top priorities for Chief Ewald, the head of all of LA County Fire, and his senior advising teams and captains. This is a big deal to them. And it's also a major investment by the LA County Board of Supervisors. And LA County Board represents the largest geography of any supervisor or board. It's 5 people with a budget of $45 billion and 10 million people. So it's a lot to handle, and to get them to be fully on board with this is a unique thing as well. Just in talking about that, this is just a brief overview. We were recently at the Natural Hazards Conference in Boulder, about, I think, 780 people in attendance. And we had a number of folks as guests to talk about what we were doing, including Sophia, who's the senior field deputy for Supervisor Horvath in the 3rd District. her district has got a lot of the Santa Monica Mountains and a lot of the high-risk areas in it. Again, I mentioned already the population of the county. The point was getting the elected government officials on board with this and supporting it is a pretty big deal. It's how you make it happen. We had the mayor pro tem come in from Malibu and other government officials as well that were there to speak about why their city, why did they do this? Why are they even investing in it? And it's great to see the level of commitment. Actually, the city of Malibu recently helped fund. We are completely funded by donations and by grants. And Malibu helped fund part of what we're doing. Also, some of the other foundations provided the money for all the radios that we have and the repeaters that are out there. And we picked up about 3 fire trucks as well. Okay, so I've sort of given you a fire hose, I guess, briefing of what we are and what we're doing. And on the bottom, again, you see some of the partnership folks. There's a lot more than just those cities and departments that are involved. But without them, we couldn't be doing this. And we want to make sure everyone is informed and up to date as to what we're doing. If you want to see how people sign up for it and what that's involved, if you go to communitybrigade.org, you can see that. If you want general information about the foundation and all the different projects, it's leepf.org. So that's pretty much where we are. We know it's not everything, but it's a pretty good start in getting people involved and wanting them to share the risk. So let me stop sharing here on this thing. And Charles, I'll be glad to take any questions that anybody has. You want to unmute?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I have a question. So how does your command structure work? Is like the decision-making function mostly professional people and they're handing down instructions to the volunteers?
Yeah, it's a good point. As far as our operational structure works, at the community level, it's usually the teams, they're like about 20 people or so at the local community, again, highly trained. They report into a team leader or the local community commander per se with a backup individual. Some of these folks are former firefighters in many cases, or they've gone through a lot of the training per se. They then go up and report into the individual captains of the localized fire station that they're assigned to. And in a major event, that command goes right up to the incident command post back through Drew and to his side. So we get all of our instructions that way. So the ultimate command structure is LA County Fire, and then down to our field commander, Keegan Gibbs, who is our overall field commander, and then down to the local community heads, and then to the individuals that are there. So that's how the structure works. Everybody goes through all the training. It's 60 hours plus of training, quarterly update training, annually exercise training. There's quite a bit that goes through, and constant communication training that everyone will have.
Great. Ted, and then Victoria.
Oops, you're muted, Ted.
Muted, Ted.
So I've got a couple of observations and questions for you, sir. I noticed that under stakeholders that we're not, you don't include the insurance companies there, which is a little bit surprising to me. And I'm just going to run through this. Also, in your training, do you do any training in shelter in place, or is that just kind of not an issue or not included in your textbooks? And I noticed, and it's kind of what Phil just asked about. In our area, we do a great amount of the same sort of thing that you folks are doing, but it's more cooperative between the communities and the agencies. Instead of being you're top down, we're kind of a cross factor. And I wonder whether you use community emergency response teams in any of your work, or is that something that's not in your lexicon? So those are just a couple of things that popped up for me, because I've been involved in this for many, many years. And so I'm interested in what you're doing, but at the same time, I've got a lot of questions.
Okay, let me start with your first one. We have talked with the insurance companies and so forth. The challenge with some of the corporations is that they take a approach of, they look at California as all being on fire. And it's sort of like how State Farm has reacted, not covering now 70,000 plus homes that they've stopped to cover. I've actually met with the insurance commissioner in the state and have regular meetings with a lot of people tied to it. We have very close ties with IBHS. The Institute for Building and Home Safety is run by the insurance industry. So we work pretty closely with them and have had a lot of input back and forth about what those standards are. And we tie that into a lot of our academic folks that we work with in UC Berkeley and many others that are fire experts. So there is a pretty good relationship there. We wish they would do more. As you can imagine, there's some huge insurance challenges here in California. And that could be a whole discussion on its own. You asked about shelter in place. Yeah, we do talk a lot about shelter in place, but it is a last ditch kind of thing. Just to tell you, we met with a lot of the communities in Topanga, and the fire chief, they made it very, very clear to the residents, we want you to get out. This is an area, for example, it's only two ways, one way in, one way out. The danger in a place like Topanga is that there's several thousand residents. It will take 6 hours, and that's on a good day, to evacuate Topanga. Fire will burn Topanga in less than 4 hours. Easy math. How many people will die? The chief is actually recommending that even in red flag days, especially when there's some wind, get out of there. Go to the San Fernando Valley, go visit some friends, whatever. But get out early. Be proactive to protect yourself by getting out. Frankly, the fire department, the risk there is so high, they don't want to put engines into Topanga Canyon when it's on fire, because it's just too dangerous for even them. Too many narrow roads, and it's too dangerous. But the chief will talk to shelter in place as a last resort, and we do that as well. It is not a primary function that you want to do. And even when we're going to be there sheltering, we are looking and we're trying to help those community identify potential TRAs, temporary refuge areas. And a temporary refuge area typically is a structure or a house that has mitigated the risk around it so that it is not likely to burn. And again, it takes a while to burn a house down in some cases. So you may be safer inside, but that is not a first choice. And we do not advocate the stay and defend. That's one of the reasons that we're there. The cooperation effort, that's really what it's all about. We are there to build the reputation of the community and gain the trust of the community through helping them understand the risk, helping them mitigate their own homes. So as we do these hundreds of home ignition assessment reviews on a community by community basis, really increase the understanding and the bond within the community. We advocate fire safe communities. We really want to see as much activity as can be done by the communities. We also want to work with the MRCA or Forest Service or whoever has the surrounding areas to try to reduce some of the fuel load where that's possible. The other one, CERT, yeah, we work with CERT all the time. We think CERT's great. I was at a CERT meeting last night. That was the meeting we had at Hidden Hills. Richard, who handles the CERT for Malibu, great operation. There are some of the folks that we may look at that may be with CERT that then elevate to come with our particular operation. We're talking about CERT on steroids and even beyond that to be part of this operation. It is quite a bit more, but CERT plays a critical role, and they're great. I mean, I can't say enough about them. I think it's a wonderful organization, and we work hand in hand on some of the communication issues. So anyway, I hope, Ted, I answered at least a few of your questions. And if you have, please let me know and I'll be able to help you with anything else. So who was next? Sure.
That'd be Gordon and then Victoria and then Phil.
Okay, Gordon.
I want to thank Charles for inviting Brent to this meeting because it's been very, very interesting. So thank you. I have a couple questions. I caught my attention the 5+ years to rebuild. I'm assuming that some of the Woolsey people are rebuilding now, hopefully. And that's an astounding number. We lost our home in the Painted Cape fire in 1990. And we were back in our new home in 15 months. And we just, pushed ahead, had cooperation from the county. And we're thankful to get back on our lot again in 15 months. So we just have one way in and one way out in the Trout Club right now. That some of us would like to see that change. But was one of the reasons that it took so long was because some of these residences were one way in, one way out kind of things? That's one question. The other question is, people who have good insurance, do they walk away from their lots and just collect the insurance because of the difficulties of rebuilding? I'm curious about that because at 42, I rebuilt our house. At 76, I have no intention of rebuilding our house at this point in time. And I would just probably want to take the insurance money and, move to Italy, but, or whatever. And so I'm wondering about insurance payoffs, and if people just sell their lots, or what's going on with these areas that you have this intimate knowledge of in terms of rebuilding, insurance payoffs? Why is it taking so long?
Those are excellent questions, Gordon. Let me try to answer these for you. On the first one, as far as rebuilding, what's happened in the last few years is that after the fire, there were a number of new requirements that planning departments, Coastal Commission, and others placed on homeowners before they could rebuild. One of them is you have to have the proper water pressure and water access, and some of these communities just didn't. And it took a while for one of the water districts to actually put backup generators in the Malibu, in the Woolsey fire. Water District 29 lost pressure because they didn't refuel the generators and they didn't have enough of them for pumps. Sounds like, gee, that's crazy, but that's what happened. So now there's concerns, well, gee, is there water and the proper pressure where you're building? Also, access. Fire trucks are, wide, big beasts, right? Not everything is a type 6, which is a smaller, like a pickup truck type. And so they need to have access onto those roads and be able to turn around and so forth. And so there are legal requirements now on how wide, if you got a long driveway, how big is that driveway? How wide is it? Is there turnaround space? Those things also affect it. And also people, when they're rebuilding, there are restrictions on how big the footprint is of the house. So, we've had cases where someone had a house that was, let's say it's 3,000 square feet. They want to rebuild with a 6,000 square foot house. And that's a big challenge to get through zoning and planning to do it. And you got Coastal Commission issues. And a lot of those things have delayed it. Also, when you're rebuilding, there's hidden costs in the areas of Malibu. A lot of the homes, heck, my home, it's on a septic system, right? And after the fire, some of the code required you to replace the septic. Insurance does not cover a septic system, by the way. And the average septic system is $150,000 to $200,000. That's sunk cost that you're never going to get anybody to pay you for. So there are a number of things that occur with that. On the insurance, did people walk away? Some people did. The folks that walked away typically were, you had homes that went from generation to generation. And while the house may, be a high value home per se, it doesn't mean that the people that are living there have a huge source of income and the funds to necessarily rebuild. Maybe the house is underinsured, or there may be other issues. And in some of those cases, people did walk away, and you have just empty lots that are for sale at this point. They've all been cleared from, hazardous material debris. But yeah, there's a number of those. And also people didn't necessarily have the patience. I'm not a young kid either. And the fact is, do I really want to spend 5 years trying to rebuild a house? I'm not so sure I want to do that. And that is a realistic concern. And now insurance has become a major one with a lot of non-renewals that exist. I will tell you, though, that the people that are rebuilding, the codes are such that most of the homes that are being rebuilt are very fire resilient homes. So you're seeing that the new code, they're stronger, better on earthquake, much better on fire, not likely to burn again. So that's something to think about. So, and also from a payoff from the insurance companies, also when you have a fire like Woolsey, Southern California Edison was involved, $2 billion plus lawsuit. So in some cases, the homeowners are getting restitution back through the utility as well. Other questions?
That was really very informative. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, Victoria, Phil, Anne Marie, and then Gustavo, and then Kim, which I think we'll have to cut it off there.
So I have an observation. My experience with firefighting started in the Midwest, and the model you describe is very similar to the volunteer model that many Midwestern fire departments have, which is a paid volunteer model. The difference with you is that your volunteers aren't paid, and it's a little bit of an upgrade from CERT. So in my mind, what you've done is created a supplemental recruitment for additional firefighters who will support existing public servants who are firefighters. And I'm curious about why you chose this model as an all-volunteer process. The second question that I have is that in Santa Barbara here, we have really focused on community organizing around FireWise, where we are focusing on prevention and home assessment and community commitment and connection between homeowners in FireWise communities. It's a very different model than what you're emphasizing. I'm not sure either is better, but I'm curious about why you chose this model. My guess is because it's Malibu area, your area is so difficult and to access, and the need for response is so great. But we have similar situations in Santa Barbara, where communities like Painted Cave have very similar kinds of programs for their own community. So I would really like you to discuss a little bit both philosophy and the practicality of choosing your model over the model at this point, which we have chosen.
Great. Excellent questions. Let me try to be succinct on some of these. On the firefighter model, the volunteers, you're correct. The majority of the country has volunteer firefighting groups that are out there, but they're signed up in a way that they don't have a paid fire department like LA County or Ventura County and so forth have, or by you guys. And so they have to rely on the volunteer firefighter groups, and they work on a regular schedule, so many hours on, so many hours off as to how they do that. There are funds for them to do that. The closest thing down here in Southern California is there's a program called the Call Firefighter Program. Now, call firefighters are paid, but not very much. They go through all the firefighter training. They are certified to operate fire trucks, and there really is no difference between a call firefighter and another firefighter for LA County or any place else, other than they don't get paid really much of anything. But they're individuals who really feel dedication to this and the need to help their community. A good example of that is down here, a place called Corral Canyon. Corral Canyon is a one-way in, one-way out community. very long, narrow canyon that goes up. So the communities come together. They decided to put together a call firefighter program under a gentleman named Matt Haynes, who's phenomenal at doing this. And they also then issued radios to every single resident. So all the residents would be in communication, and they have protocols throughout their community to be able to talk to each other. They have a repeater and so forth to be able to do that. They've also installed what are called personal fire hydrants at a number of the homes, or Haney hydrants as they're called, which are tapped off of your main water line coming to your house after the meter. So it's not before the meter, it's after the meter. Pressure needs to be at least 110 or 120 pounds per square inch on the water. And then it goes through a gated Y to ideally a 1-inch fire line, which is very adequate for what we're doing around those homes. So it's a good community that has done some of that. The FireWise communities, we are big time in favor of that. We want to see our communities become FireWise communities. But we did it as volunteers, and let me tell you why. The reason we're doing it as volunteers, multiple reasons. One of them, as a volunteer organization, we qualify for the State of California Disaster Service Worker Program, including insurance. So volunteer DSWs are insured on workers' comp kind of insurance during any training or any response that is called for by an authorized California agency like the fire department. That gives us full coverage, which in this business you must have. Plus our foundation has a certain amount of coverage as well. And then there's certain releases of liability. So there are really strong legal reasons to do that. Also, the other reason to be a nonprofit is to fund this. Government isn't going to fund this. So as a result, we need to be a 501c3 or have a 501c3 as a partner to be able to apply for the grant funding and other funds to be able to pay for our operation. It's expensive. Personal protection equipment runs around $2,500 a person. I'm talking a couple hundred people times $2,500, plus a lot of other expenses that exist, communications and so forth. They have to be managed as you go through the process. So that's one of the reasons. And then I think above all for us, it was the credibility and trust. Trust is the biggest thing. We live in those communities. So if I was a resident of Santa Barbara in a certain community, and I had a group like this brigade that was composed of folks who lived near me or in my community, and they're the ones that are educating me on why I should evacuate or what I should do, that group will have, nothing wrong with the fire department or the government, but that group will tend to have more trust. You might listen to a trusted neighbor more than you might listen to a government agency person. And that's exactly what we're finding. And so we want to build that trust, and that's how we work. So hopefully I've answered at least part of your questions.
So Brent, we run over time. It's up. You're more than welcome to stay. I just wanted to see how far you want to continue with the questions. It's up to you.
No, I'm fine. It's your time. So there are a couple more people.
Yes, we have. Then we'll Phil and Gustavo, and then Emery's dropped, but then Kim.
Sure, and I'll try to be more concise. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, to what extent, if any, do you operate based on pre-fire plans? I mean, are there evacuation plan for a particular neighborhood that you have a role in implementing, or is there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and the answer is that yes, we understand all the zone concepts. Every one of these neighborhoods is divided into certain evacuation zones. If you've seen the soft zone haven, if you look that up, and you guys may have that too, where you break your community into different groups for evacuation purposes. So we're very familiar with those, and we would be involved when what happens with evacuations is the fire department orders the evacuation, but it's implemented by law enforcement. They can't implement it. Law enforcement implements the evacuation. So we work with both. And so then our objective is once we have that, and if it's in a neighborhood that we're supporting, we will go into that neighborhood and help people to get out. I will say one thing about that is you folks do your planning. Some outstanding research out of UC Berkeley was done on evacuation timing. And this was after Paradise. And what we discovered is you need to take into account the age of the residents, how many children they have, how many pets they have, the kind of pets, the kind of vehicles they have, and all those factors impact how long it's going to take for that resident to evacuate. And so you start factoring that in, and you can start to model that and model how much traffic will be on the evacuation routes. And you end up discovering how long it's going to really take you to evacuate a community. But the game is evacuate early, have everybody the ready, set, go kind of deal to be prepared and get them out as soon as possible. Wildland fire with the intensity that we have, staying is not a real good option. So hope that. Other question?
Gustavo and then Kim.
Yes, thank you very much for presenting today. Really appreciate it. My question, very simple question. When your team goes out to do home ignition assessments, do you charge for those assessments, or they're free to the community?
They're free. We don't charge anyone for it. We recently did the sheriff. We did the sheriff's house for Lost Hills Sheriff, Captain C2, and she was surprised. She thought she had done everything right. And when we were going through her house, hey, change this. You might want to reconsider this. Get rid of the brush mat that you have at your front door that's going to, just catch on fire so easily. It's not even funny. But I think that's one of the things that people appreciate is that we go in and we don't charge for it. We've had a lot of folks now who are faced with renewals on their insurance company, and they're getting letters from Farmers Insurance or other insurance companies saying, hey, here's a huge list of the stuff you got to do. Prove it to us. We will go through that with the homeowner. And we do really try to do the best job possible of educating and working with each homeowner on how to do this and how to mitigate it. There's a lot you can do that's very inexpensive, especially things like vents, changing your 1/4 inch opening vents to 1/8 or 1/16 inch with galvanized mesh. It's not a hard thing to do and very, very inexpensive. I know everybody likes all their ornamental plants that are really beautiful underneath their single pane windows, but no, not a good thing to have. But yeah, no charge.
A follow-up question very quickly. How do you provide a report?
Electronically. And our objective is to try to get it back to the homeowner, in some cases within 24 hours to 48 hours. And it includes all the video, all the pictures, and all the details of your exposures and what we recommend you do. So it's several pages of report. But Tyler Hutman, our expert in this, does a phenomenal job. We have modified a software tool called Spectora that's normally used for inside home inspections. Real estate agents use it. We have a version that we created that is strictly outside the house, that is strictly focused on fire. And the reason we use that one, there's some other tools that are good, is it allowed us to embed video. And we thought it was important to be able to have embedded video where we're talking to the homeowner about a specific issue. So
thank you very much.
Okay, last question, I guess.
Yeah, real quick, Brent, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I'm wondering, you live in Malibu, and I know there's a long stretch of the coastal highway there that's covered by beacon boxes and I'm wondering if any of the other 6 communities in your pilot programs have adopted those.
Yeah, we have quite a few. The beacon boxes are designed to have some information in there for mutual aid groups coming in, fire departments coming in that aren't familiar with the community. And it tells them, here's the roads, here's a map, and so forth, which can be very helpful. At the same time, the technology that the fire departments have today is pretty darn advanced. And even a mutual aid truck coming in has that information already on it. So it's going to be downloaded very quickly by that engine company so that they know what's there. But the beacon boxes are good as a supplement by having our team there. What the fire chief wants, he said, you guys know your community better than anybody. Why don't you ride on one of our trucks? I mean, we may ask you to, you're certified to ride on the truck. You have to be certified to do that. But they'll have one of us go with them, and then we can show them where water is, where there is no water, where the turnarounds are, where we think the higher danger points are. And that can be a huge benefit, especially to an agency that is not familiar with it. But the beacon boxes are great. Anything that really can help firefighters or the community understand where those risks are, I'm all in favor of it. It's good.
Thank you. May I just clarify a statistic that you threw out? I want to
Yeah.
use it, but I don't want to flub it. You said that LA Fire said that there is, did you say a 1,500% increase in large fire possibility this year?
It's a risk, yeah. The risk increase is that.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know if that's a hard number, but that's what they were saying. The other numbers I gave to you are very interesting on the benefit cost ratio, and that's the report by the National Institute of Building Sciences and the Multi-Hazard Mitigation Council. It's a group I chaired for a number of years for Congress, and we did a report for Congress with about 120 PhDs and experts, all the kind of experts by each hazard, and it's become a worldwide benchmark for benefit cost ratios, and it's very helpful information when you're looking at cultural change and working with local governments to justify investment in that area. And it's proven to be quite accurate.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, look, it's a pleasure working with you. Our objective is programs to be innovative. It's got to be collaborative. It has to be sustainable. But it also has to be measurable and finally repeatable. And on the repeatable side, I mean, we are building a toolkit or per se to make it repeatable. We would be delighted as we go forward to work with you folks, work with your fire department emergency management in Santa Barbara to help you develop such a program up there. So do not hesitate to contact us, please.
Brent, that's amazing that you guys stuck with it for so many years to get this plan initiated. I mean, that takes some enormous amount of energy, I would only imagine, go from 2018 to 2023 and stuck with it through all the meetings and all the different things you had to address. So very impressive. Thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the good work you guys are doing. I know you have your hands full, but participating in this program that you're in is a great reflection on how the concern your own community has to look at these issues. So thank you for that. And again, just give me a call.
Thanks.